You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones after week 8 of the CFL season. The dust hasn't settled, but reality has set in on what has happened in Jasper. So I do want to start the show again talking about Jasper because, my wife and I kind of felt guilty, but life does happen and life does go on. We did go to the Elks game Sunday against the Ticats, and what a valuable time to talk to some great friends in the CFL family. Now, it's my philosophy and belief that making friends as an adult is quite difficult, but CFL football has given me the opportunity to make friends as an adult and to share some hugs and some tears and laughs with members of the CFL family. Was so cool, and so many kind words were shared with me. Obviously, there is some slight guilt because I didn't lose any sentimental things, and I didn't lose a house, a home, anything like that, but it was like an entire childhood of memories came flashing back in a single day. And we actually recorded, I think, last week's pod before Flames hit the Jasper town site, and that was tough, man. And going through the memories and the pictures from childhood to now was, wow, quite the whirlwind, but at the same time, amazing to see how people come together. I saw, just yesterday or today, firefighters from South Africa landing in Edmonton to assist with fighting fires in the province of Alberta. Australia has arrived, Mexico has arrived, and the amount of ways that you can help out is really cool. Now, nationally, if you do want to donate to the Red Cross, the federal and provincial governments are going to be matching those donations for the next 30 days, and then Wednesday in Alberta, it's a province-wide bottle drive. So from 9 to 6, go to any bottle depot in the province, take your empties in, say they're for Jasper, and it's as easy as that. And of course, those donations matched twice, so that's amazing. If you are looking for a local organization to donate to, the Jasper Community Team Society, a Jasper organization. I'm reading they've already raised well over about $165,000 as of this morning. So incredible to see the surrounding communities, like anywhere from Hinton to Valemont to Calgary to Grand Prairie to Edmonton, coming together and helping evacuees. It's so heartwarming to see. And then the wildlife that has found a way to adapt, survive, and overcome. They've got instincts that are a lot more powerful than the ones we have. So that makes me feel good and very encouraged. And to see 70% of the town standing is also amazing to see as well. The Oilers Nation, the Flames Nation guys are selling t-shirts with proceeds to the Jasper Community Team Society, to Jasper with Love, Spirit Island on the shirt. But yeah, so many ways to help out. So much tragedy, but so many encouraging things. And Sheldon, when tough things happen, people really come together and help each other out. And that does make me feel really good. Once you sift through all the BS online and all that, people are people and people help each other out. And that is encouraging, man.
Yeah, that's the one thing that happens with tragedies, that it's always, you can see the people reach out with their wallets, what they can do and give money to a good cause. One thing I just want to say, and I kind of I understand why you guys have a little bit of guilt. I do, but you shouldn't. And that's not me just saying that, but like, your memories are valid. Your time there, all of that is valid. And so I really hope you can try to find a way to not feel guilty, because you guys, anyone who's ever been to Jasper, anyone who's spent time there, or like me, who's wanted to go there, like, I feel pretty bad that I'll never be able to see some of the stuff there. Obviously, some of it has remained, and like you said, nature is pretty beautiful with how it can rebuild itself. So I will get there, and I will get to see it. But just as long as everyone's out there, everyone hopefully now is as safe as they can be, and then we can rebuild, reclaim, and thrive.
Once it's safe, I do encourage you just to see how fast nature rejuvenates. Next year, there will be kilometers and kilometers of purple fireweed that looks so amazing. And that will be a really cool sight to behold. And the mountains have stood tall before, and they will remain standing tall for all of us to enjoy going forward. I don't know, man. That place makes me want to be better physically, mentally, and it helps achieve all of those goals for me. So I can't wait to return. We'll start talking about football right now, and we're actually going to start with the NFL, where Nathan Rourke has been a member of the New York Giants. Training camp recently starting. It was reported that really he hasn't been seeing the field in any of their drills. He gets put on waivers and goes unclaimed. He's going to continue to exhaust all of those NFL options. But at this point, Sheldon, from Jacksonville to New England to New York, if I remember correctly, it just seems like, barring a few injuries on a single team, that the opportunities and the chances just aren't really happening for him.
No, and it's politics. Like it sucks to say that, but it is. Like you can just tell from the way he played up here. He played like some of those greats that did play up here and then got a chance to there. Yeah. Jeff Garcia. I'm not going to say he was as good as Doug Flutie, but he showed that he has the talent. He showed that he has the drive, and he just needs a chance. Now, I don't know if this is true, but a friend of mine said he's pretty sure that Nathan's 1 year away from getting the pension or qualifying for the pension. You need to be able to play for 3 seasons, but a season counts as 3 games in a season. So I believe he's got 2 of those so far. So he needs 1 more. He basically needs to suit up for 3 more games. And if what I looked up is correct, and I'm sure there's some of our listeners who can fact check that. But so that's life changing. Like the NFL pension is an amazing thing. So if he can get that, all the power to him. And the NFL was his dream. He said that when he was up here. He said the NFL was his dream, so that he's going to chase his dream. But as a fan, and I know it's funny as I told you not to feel guilty, but I kind of feel guilty and selfish because I want to see him playing up here, right? Yeah. But I want him to be able to get his bank and to be able to play down there and follow his dreams. But it's just... It's crazy. You see, like I'm a Packer fan in the NFL, and Jordan Love just signed the biggest contract ever for a quarterback, and the dude has played 1 full season, and he's won 9 games. And
I get he's talented, but I guess
know.
That's inflation hitting the contracts, because it's like Jordan Love. I know Patrick Mahomes and those guys get locked in long term, so maybe it does. Maybe it minimizes their chances to hit bank and new biggest contracts of all time every single year. But that is kind of crazy. I agree.
So you're going to pay Jordan Love that much, which again, he had a great.
Yeah.
He had a great season. It mirrored a lot of what Aaron Rodgers did in his first year. And so you saw what happened to Aaron Rodgers before he decided to become Aaron Rodgers. And it's just crazy to me. Again, I know why, but it's crazy to me that these GMs are not giving him a chance solely because there's some scouts out there who have scouted a kid for a long time and doesn't want to be wrong. So the GM is going to keep him and keep him and keep him. And so the politics of the game suck. But I hope he can get that pension, and I hope he can get back up here because we have a CFL podcast, and if Nathan Rourke is entering CFL free agency, we could probably talk about that for a month with all the teams that'll be involved and all that stuff. So come on, Nathan.
I feel like it can't just be, I'm thinking from the business side for him and his agent. It can't just be, well, I'm going to throw a team that doesn't exist out there, just for example's sake. It can't just be on the Monday saying I'm returning to Canada and then Tuesday I'm signing with the Atlantic Schooners. Yeah. You know what I mean?
No.
I feel like he needs to announce, yep, I'm coming back to the CFL for 2025 and fielding offers from every single team. And it's going to be a fascinating way, I think, how teams are going to manage this, because we've seen big contracts handed out in the past and it really crippled the rest of their roster. So I don't know.
O'Reilly.
Because I mean, could Rourke get an $800,000 contract? To me, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, but what does that do, obviously, to the rest of your roster? I think this could be the most exciting offseason and the most exciting bidding battle for a player in the past 25 years, man. I remember when Enoch Muamba came back from the NFL, he got tours of everywhere in the league, and I think that might pale in comparison to Nathan Rourke coming back.
For sure.
And it'll be so fun, man.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have 9 teams. Like, I don't think there's any quarterback right now that's untouchable for a team to release to try to get Nathan Rourke. You could theorize maybe that Ottawa's happy with Drew Brown and maybe they would want to develop him, and maybe they're saying, hey, we got who we have and let's build our team around him. But Cody Fajardo's not getting any younger. Trevor Harris, maybe one more year after this. Zach Collaros, probably the same thing. Bo Levi Mitchell, probably the same thing. You have McLeod Bethel-Thompson, same thing. Tre Ford, now that's a person that maybe a team is willing to go with. Who knows?
Doesn't this hurt Tre's ability at securing a payday in the offseason as well?
Well, a little bit, but at the same time, whatever team decides to drop their quarterback to get him, that quarterback then becomes the next free agent, right? The next big guy, possibly, if it's one of the younger ones. Like if Rourke is going to go back to BC and BC's willing to let Vernon Adams go, that's a quarterback who has a good another, 5, 6, 8 years left, maybe. And then that would become the second biggest bidding war to get Vernon Adams, right?
True, yeah.
So, and I know when Rourke was here and he did that in-booth interview during that game, he did make it seem like he would want to go back to BC. But if you're BC, you have to pro and con that, because are you willing to mess up what you have going now with odds on the front runner for MOP right now? And let's say Vernon Adams does win the MOP. Yeah, let's say it. Let's say they win the Grey Cup, he wins the MOP, and then you're really gonna trade Vernon Adams to another team so you can sign Nathan Rourke? That would be crazy and great for us, but that would be crazy.
Yeah, this could make an unbelievable offseason, and obviously I'll say he's got to do it before free agency, because teams are gonna just start working on their budgets, things like that. And then once that domino falls, it affects the rest of the league and the rest of free agency. I hope I'm not overblowing it, but yeah, I do think this is big, and it'll be exciting. I think he's he's one of those generational, when the WHL or the CHL had like Connor Bedard, for example, right. He was labeled like the exceptional player or whatever he was. Like, that's this type of guy that Nathan Rourke is. And I know we've seen flash in the pans. We've seen Casey Printers. We've seen some of these other quarterbacks who have, but I'm pretty sure
we know that Nathan Rourke is the real deal, and we know that he's going to be he could be the next Michael Riley, the next Bo Levi, the next Ricky Ray, any of those guys. So it's like you said, I hope he can get with the team, sign with the team, get dressed for 3 games, get his pension, and then at the end of the NFL season, ask for your release and declare for the CFL 2025 season. Let's go.
Yeah, and this makes for an exciting time going forward. We'll throw Davis Alexander into the mix for the Als. We'll throw Tre Ford into the mix. We'll throw Taylor Powell and Hamilton into the mix.
Shea Patterson.
Yeah, of the next generation of CFL quarterbacks. This is a changing of the guard slowly happening, but it certainly is an exciting time. All of a sudden, Fajardo and Vernon Adams Jr. are kind of the elder statesmen when it comes to Harris and Bo. I understand that, but hey, and we can't minimize Bo's performance so far this season, even though they are 2-5. But that's the last game of Week 8. We'll start with the first game of Week 8, and that's the Alouettes beating the Riders 20-16. It was the battle of the backups. Caleb Evans starting for the Als, Shea Patterson starting for the Riders, and also Sheldon, kind of a tale of two halves. The Riders starting very well, able to limit Caleb Evans, force some mistakes from Caleb Evans, and wow, were they really able to run the ball with Frankie Hickson. But 98 yards in the first half, and he finished with 117 yards overall. Those Alouettes, quite frankly, made better adjustments than the Riders did in that regard.
Yeah, 100%. That's what happened in the game. Jason Moss went into halftime. He made adjustments. He decided to go with Davis Alexander. And the Riders obviously didn't have any tape on him. And for whatever it was, he was picking apart the defense. He was able to get away from pressure, because it's not like Corey Mace just sat back and didn't blitz him. They did, but they were able to pick it up. They had extra protection for him. That's another thing that for some reason Mark Mueller didn't have for Shea Patterson in the second half. And especially in that fourth quarter there, Montreal was just sending 7 or 8, it seemed, every play. And you would think that you would try to bring in a jumbo set or a tight end just to have an extra blocker in there. But the crazy thing is, the Riders were still in it right to the end. They had a chance, if it wasn't for Picton to step out of bounds when he caught the ball there. Honestly, the way that they were kind of had the momentum there, I thought they were going to win. And the fact that it was just so weird watching that game, because I was at a watch party for CFL Fans Fight Cancer. A guy in Regina, Glenn here, he put it together, and we raised, I think it was $1,600. I think, could be wrong, but it was a good chunk of change. Awesome. And so it was a taco bar. It was awesome, and the first half we were all watching it and everyone was happy. It was great. And then halftime happened, and it just was like, it just became the weirdest game. But the thing that was so weird is Montreal was dominating so much in that second half, but it was still a 4-point game at the end. So it was just, the defenses came to play, but in separate halves, and the offenses came to play in separate halves. And so it was a bizarre game, but, I can't say it wasn't entertaining, and a lot of people were very upset about the air horns.
I was
at
laughing.
The watch party, that's for sure.
At the end of the game, I just started laughing. There's always one guy. When you go to an event and there's one guy that always has to clap last. I think that was happening with.
I'm that guy.
There's why are you still blowing the horn? I was sitting at home and I was just laughing. And there was some controversy with this one. And hey, we'll talk about it. Sask goes into the half leading 16-3. So the biggest problem, obviously, is I'm getting shut out in the second half and not being able to do anything that way. And I was prepared to be mad about it. But, Mario Alford, it's ruled a fumble. But then the very next drive, Saskatchewan blocks a field goal and scores a field goal of their own towards the end of the half. So, I mean, it seemed like it kind of just, it didn't really matter at the end of the day. But
it does matter.
When I look at it, maybe they wouldn't have been able to overturn the call. Maybe. But the fact, it just felt like it wasn't even looked at. And then later in the game, things were obviously looked at. And when I watched the Alfred play, and I don't know how they would rule this thing, because sometimes you watch things and you still can't figure out why it went that way. It did seem like maybe the ball had started to move, or at least in his arm, before his knee hit the ground. But the bigger question is, like, it didn't even seem like it was an issue. And we thought that all, turnovers were automatically reviewed. There have been some really obvious touchdowns that they review, and I'm like, well, why are we even looking at it? But this didn't even seem like it got looked at all, Sheldon.
No, and it's just really frustrating, because it seems like, and it's not only this game, it happens every week, it seems, where there's some sort of controversy when it comes to either what the eye in the sky can or should do, or what the officials can or should do. There was, I can understand if it's a throw and it's a possible that it's a catch or a no catch, and the offenses will line up really quick to try to get a play off. I get that. That's gamesmanship. That's completely fine, because it says in the rule book that only, potential turnovers are turnovers, potential touchdowns or touchdowns. And there was one other thing. Those are automatically supposed to be reviewed every single time. So at least you can't tell me that they looked at more than one angle in the time it took to get the Montreal's offense out there.
Yeah, they switched,
and then,
it was crazy.
And then they spent, it seemed like 3 or 4 minutes on that incomplete pass that was then overturned to become a fumble, which it absolutely was a fumble. So they got the call right there. Yeah. But just the amount of time it took them to do that. And then the thing that actually rattled me even more than the Mario Alfred thing, when Saskatchewan was rolling near the end of the fourth quarter, I don't know if it was the last drive or if it was the second last drive. It seemed like every play they were like stopping, and they were looking at the clock, or
that drive took a long time.
But all that was doing was giving extra time for the crowd to just go nuts with those air horns and get loud. Yeah. And it was stifling any sort of momentum the Riders had. And I would be saying this if it was another team. This isn't a homer take. It's just like, if you're not going to stop to check a fumble when it's very close to whether it is, why are you stopping to check the clock every single second at the end of every single play? And it's, I don't know, if that was a home game for a team, the crowd would be booing like crazy. So it's, I just wish they would find a way to figure this out. I wish either Randy Ambrosie or whoever is in charge of the officials, I can't remember if it's still Jake Ireland or if it's somebody else, but like, there needs to be a face of this issue, and they need to explain it and let fans know what they're doing about it, what should be happening. Just because we're all in the dark, we're all on X or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, and we're all frustrated. There's fans who are frustrated about their own team. That's cool, but there's fans that are just frustrated in general.
Yeah.
And that's not good for the league. Like, we don't want every single play, or not every single play, every single game for fans to be like, oh, there's 6 calls that should have went the other way. And like let these players play, but at the same time fix errors that are clear.
I think, the drive you're referring to is, basically Saskatchewan's last drive, where they ended up taking a procedure penalty, but then Montreal ends up taking an illegal contact penalty, extending Saskatchewan's drive, and it was just getting guys like Darnell Sankey more fired up. And that Montreal crowd, I think it's maybe becoming the toughest place to play in the CFL. Yep. I'm not against the Horns. I think it's fine. And teams have to deal with it. You got to take them out of the game. And the momentum in the second half just went the way that you weren't going to be able to shut them up. But what a critical penalty that Mitch Picton took on one of that. I mean, the Riders may have had an opportunity to score a touchdown there, but that illegal participation, that's frustrating. When you're not forced out of bounds, it's just not having that awareness, So that was a tough one for them to take, but the Riders were really close to forcing Montreal to get the ball back with some time, or maybe even winning this game. So it did come down to the wire. But what did strike me when Davis Alexander came into the game, the length of the drives that the Alouettes were putting down there, and that was just wearing on the Rider defense. The first drive was the touchdown to Reggie White Jr., 7 plays, 42 yards, 4.5 minutes off the clock. And then the next drive, 8 plays, 96 yards, almost 6 minutes off the clock. And then there was another drive, this one in the fourth quarter, 13 plays, 59 yards, almost 7.5 minutes off the clock. Like, every time that the Owls offense got on there, the Riders could not force them off the field. Davis Alexander's final stat line is very, very impressive. 15 of 18, 178 yards, 2 touchdowns. Showed that he's athletic. There were times when the Riders were on top of him. And there was one, he just ducked 2 defenders and slipped right through them. So an amazing performance in the second half, and the Rider defense just couldn't get off the field at all. And that helped with all the momentum going Montreal's way, of course.
Yeah, and the offense couldn't stay on the field either to give the defense a break. Like, you could tell, and this was the first game in Corey Mace's tenure that the Riders didn't play their best quarter in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
But they still did have a chance at the end. So there still is that no quit factor, which is great. But that no end, the procedure no end penalty earlier, that was a killer too, because that was like a 45-yard play. Yeah. That would have, at least got a field goal. And Brett Lowther just being very unlucky to hit the goal or the post, the upright and the crossbar. Like that tells you that you have the leg. You're an inch or two away from getting it. And those weren't short kicks; those were long kicks. So, I
think one at least was a 57-yarder. Yeah.
Yeah, the one off the crossbar was a 57. Yeah, and and I don't want to take anything away from Shea Patterson, because I think he's doing about as well as any backup quarterback coming in. But I don't think this is a homeristic take. If Trevor Harris didn't get hurt, Riders are 7-0, I bet you. Because they were putting up 30 points a game with Trevor Harris. And they haven't been giving up 30 points a game. So I'm not saying it's a for sure thing, but I'm saying, like, the defense has stepped up huge in these games that Trevor Harris hasn't been playing in. And that's what a team needs to do. But again, any other year, any other time, I'm probably really, really upset at that second half and feeling just, down. But I honestly wasn't, because, these 4 games, for these last 4 games for the Riders were a tough stretch. And I think a lot of people thought, like, this is where the team was going to show who they were, because the first 3 or 4 games were a lot easier with, the Elks twice and Hamilton. But going 2-2 in this 4-game stretch is actually pretty good. And I think, you're still tied for first in the West. So I don't think there's anything, it's not a panic time. And they have the Elks coming up here, which I have a lot of PTSD about, which we will talk about on our next show.
Sam Emelis ended up being the leading receiver for the Riders. 6 catches, 63 yards. I don't know if it's obvious. Like, is it Tyson Philpott versus Justin McInnis for the most outstanding Canadian right now? Philpott, 7 catches, 88 yards in this one. Reggie White Jr., 2 touchdowns receiving for the Alouettes. And the Owls didn't really have success on the ground, and they didn't really try to have success on the ground either. 5 carries for 16 yards. The Rider rush defense is stout. They are tough to get going against, for sure.
I would bet, I bet you they didn't have more than 1 rush in the second half. 1 or 2 with max, because once Davis got in there, he just was slinging the ball.
He was, yeah.
And the Riders couldn't stop him, so why would you even stop throwing the ball? And, it was impressive.
Fletcher had 53 yards receiving, though, on 5 catches for the Alouettes. Already at practice for this week, Davis Alexander has been taking the first team reps. They're getting set to play Hamilton on Friday. So I guess slight short week for the Ticats. The Owls exactly 1 week apart. So, a leg up for them in that regard. And then for the Riders, you think they need to find a way? I think they do, to get Frankie Hickson on the field, even if AJ Ouellette's out there.
Oh, like the two of them could be dynamite together, thunder and lightning. If you had both of them in the backfield at the same time, I'm not even talking like them switching off series. If you can find a way to have, AJ maybe be the fullback in the set and Frankie be the tailback, the teams wouldn't know where to guard, where to block. Like, I think that would be amazing for the Riders. I hope that they can figure out a way to do it. But Rakovic has been really good at his blocking. Yeah. So I don't know how you can really take him out. But even if it's just Frankie Hickson staying on and maybe being a secondary returner, because that's another thing that the Riders kind of have struggled with this year is returning. And I don't know if I want to place that all on Mary Walford or if it's the blocking. But he did have the quote-unquote fumble. But so maybe you keep Hickson in there because he's dynamite. He's fast. Maybe he can be like what Khalil Pimpleton has been doing in Ottawa with a little change of pace. I know that was an injury, but a little change of pace. You throw another returner back and Bob's your uncle.
You brought up Pimpleton. We're going to get to that Ottawa-Calgary game here. First, I'll mention that Tyler Sneed has been back at practice for the Alouettes as well. So they've got some decisions to make. Philpott, Rambo, Speaker, White, Sneed. Julian Grant ended up being injured. So maybe Sneed is able to just slide right in there and add another great, capable receiver to that Alouettes receiving core. And maybe with Davis Alexander's performance, it gives them the confidence to let Cody Fajardo be 100% before coming back, because I think we saw in Saskatchewan, he came back before he was ready to, and it did... It lasted the rest of the year, him being injured and kind of struggling through his knee issues with the Riders. Oh, man. Those Ottawa REDBLACKS are undefeated at home, 4-0, after beating the Calgary Stampeders 33-6. That Ottawa hat looks good on your head. I think that home uniform looks great on the players. They now have as many wins this season at home than they've had in like the last, it's crazy, like 35 games or something like that. And nothing went right for the Stampeders. I don't know what else you could say. Like, the only thing that was good was Rene Paredes ends up keeping the perfect season alive, going 2 for 2 on field goals. But Jake Maier, I mean, he didn't turn the ball over. 20 of 27 for 136 yards. No other numbers there, but the Red Black defense was flying to the ball, and the Stamps got absolutely nothing going. I don't know what else to say, man, about that at all.
Yeah.
Just a rough game beginning to end for the Stamps.
Yeah, I know I've kind of been harping on Mayer to throw in the short routes, but that was a little short. You do need to still score touchdowns. But the thing was, Ottawa, like you said, Ottawa's defense was flying around, and they were not missing tackles.
No.
They were getting contact, and they were bringing the Stamp receivers down, and they were causing chaos for him. They were making Jake throw the ball before he wanted to. It's good that he didn't throw any interceptions, but you got to score points. And when you score 6 points in the CFL, you are not going to win any games. So, and I have this hat on for a reason. It's time for us to start putting some respect on Ottawa's name, because I think up until a couple weeks ago, there's still been a lot of people who've been writing them off. And like you said, they found a way to win at home, which is something they were struggling with majorly over the past few seasons, and they are playing exciting, fast-paced, explosive football, and it's just really fun to watch. And like I said, this Khalil Pimpleton's burst onto the scene has been incredible. It kind of reminds me of when Lucky Whitehead burst onto the scene with Winnipeg in his first year. Drew Brown is hitting just all of his receivers. He's spreading the ball around, so you don't know where to cover. Honestly, like, Ottawa's doing a great job, and they're second place in the East now.
Yeah, I'm looking at Calgary's drives in this game, and just nothing was sustained. Maybe they had one in the second half where they had a 10-play drive, 67 yards, but that ended up in a turnover on downs. So it was just ugly all around for the Calgary Stampeders. And, man, did Khalil Pimpleton change this entire Red Blacks team? 7 catches, 80 yards, but then obviously he ends up adding a 99-yard punt return for a touchdown as well. And the Red Blacks did this, losing their starting running back in the first half after taking 2 misconduct penalties. They had no running back, or at least traditional running back, for the rest of the game. Braylon Addison ended up leading the team in rushing, 5 carries for 28 yards. But you look at Drew Brown, 30 of 37, 325 yards, and a touchdown. Special teams, defense, offense, all doing their job in this victory for the Red Blacks.
Yeah, it was a really fun game to watch. There's no secret that I don't like the Calgary Stampeders, so it's always fun when, at least for me, when I see them get mollywopped like that. But it's just Ottawa has found a success for what they're doing, and their defense has been pretty good for a while now. It's just now the offense is finally catching up, and we saw that Jeremiah Masoli actually dressed for the first time this season too. And I kind of want to see Jeremiah get to play again, but
I know, yeah,
he's not getting to play again on Ottawa unless there's a couple injuries.
Yeah, I think that's accurate, but so good to see him in uniform again, of course. Is Cody Grace the best Stampeder right now? The punter, 8 punts for 359 yards. There was a close call when Khalil Pimpleton almost didn't pick up a punt, and Grace came crashing down the field and almost recovered it. That might have been the play of the game for the Stamps.
Yep. Grace was the offensive player of the game for sure.
The best parts of this game for the Stamps are Reggie Bagleton continuing his games with a reception streak, and Rene Paredes keeping it going with his field goals on the season as well. But they struggled all over the place. And what's the time of possession in this one? Calgary actually led in time of possession. They had the ball for 30 minutes and 18 seconds, but just couldn't make it happen. And let's see. So Calgary's second down conversions in this one, 8 of 22, so 35% rate. And while I'm going to let you take over here, but they were really bad on second down in the last game as well. If you're going to be that bad on second down and just rely on, big plays or whatever to get it done, it's not a recipe for victory, man.
No, and it's not like they're a team that's not coached well. So I don't like Dave Dickinson's a good coach. It's really fun to see him get frustrated on the sidelines, and when he, does his fishing challenges that don't work, I always get a kick out of that. But again, they have a great special teams coach who's been pegged as the next head coach for the last few years. They've been actually playing decent defense in football. They held BC to what they did. They made Vernon Adams have a bad game.
Yeah.
So the Calgary Stampeders are just such a hot and cold team, and it's really weird. It's impossible for me to tell if they're a good or a bad team right now. I'm trending towards bad because they, like you said, they can't convert on second down. They don't have that target that you would always target on second down that the Stamps usually had. They had Nick Lewis for however many years. Then they had others. Bagleton was the guy. Michelle was the guy. They had the players who were clutch on second down, but it doesn't seem like Mayer has that right now, or he doesn't have the confidence, or their play calling. I don't know what it is, but the Stamps need to figure out pretty quickly, because Winnipeg has a couple wins. I know Winnipeg looked like trash this week, and we'll talk about that soon, but there's still a third place team that needs to come out of the Western Conference or Western Division. But it looks like there's 3 teams that are like, hey, no, I don't want it. I don't want it. I don't want it. Which it's so bizarre, because usually it's the East that is this bad. And I love the conspiracy theories that are out there right now, because there's
the East crossover.
The East crossover, but no, there's conspiracies that, and the Riders are a part of it, traveling to the East on short weeks. Because the Riders played this Thursday. Well, no, I'm not saying I believe it, but the Riders played this Thursday. But there's 2 more Thursdays in a few weeks that they go to the East for.
Oh wow! And
the teams are on rest, and it just seems like there's I know McLeod Bethel Thompson was having his little hissy fit about it, but they had to travel to the East on short rest. So I'm there's a conspiracy theory that's out there that the schedule was made to kind of favor the East because of how bad it's been. And I'm not saying it's true, but I'm saying every now and then I don't mind a good conspiracy theory.
Hey, I'm a fan of conspiracies.
Yeah.
I'm always like the Dwight Schrute. I don't believe you. Tell me more.
But honestly, the East, because Hamilton has come alive, they got 2 in a row now, and Ottawa's looking good. Toronto, kind of hit and miss. Somebody didn't like that I called the loser a loser, but I'm going to do it again. The loser's coming back. Sorry. And okay, now that I talked about it, I have to get this off my chest. It came out that there is a rule in place for when that person comes back to the field or to practice or whatever, that he is not allowed to be alone with any female members of the coaching staff or training staff. If you need to have that as a rule for a player, that player should not be in the league.
It's embarrassing.
That's all I'm going to say.
It's embarrassing.
That's all I'm going to say.
I did find the second down numbers for Calgary when they beat BC, and they were 8 of 22, but I do think at one point in the game, they were like 1 of 15 or something like that. So later in the game, they made it happen and they got the win. But yeah, interesting to see when they beat a team like the Lions and then, go across Ottawa. And you'd think, maybe compete. And that game just wasn't competitive.
But it's funny though. It was on paper. Sorry, it was on paper that Ottawa hadn't lost at home. Calgary has been trashed on the road.
Yeah,
that's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
I forgot to talk about this when we were talking about the Rider game. I said that the betting line was ridiculous and terrible, and what the heck. Montreal won by 4 points, and they are favored by 3.5. So I guess
that's pretty close.
What do I
know? We mentioned both the Bombers and the Argos, and the Argos get a win here, 16-14.
The Argos defense got a win.
Yes, I can't even. How can we blame Zach for this? I think we're past that point. Big completion to Nick Dembski, fumbled. Big completion to Drew Wolodarski, fumbled. Big gain.
That one looked like it hurt.
It did look like it hurt. So hopefully he's okay, and that is probably why he fumbled the ball. But big gain by Brady Oliveira, fumbled. And then the interception that Zach threw. Let's get right to that. How is that not PI? Some of the PIs we've seen get called, and that isn't.
It's whose line is it anyway out there, man? Sometimes
maybe this is feeding into the East conspiracy, but come on. To me, that one was very obvious. Grabbing on the shoulder pad before the ball ever got there. It gets tipped a few times and picked off by the Argos. That's the
thing. If the ball got tipped, then you can make contact.
Oh, it wasn't tipped before.
Oh, I thought. Oh, right. Okay. Sorry.
It got tipped after.
Right.
And
right.
then the interception.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Brain fart.
I'm honestly blown away by
agree.
that.
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely suspect. But you've seen worse not called. You've seen less contact called. So, like I said, they need to figure out a way to make it make sense.
Yeah.
There was almost another mistake on the Bombers, but luckily he was able to get a hold of it on that deep pass to Ontario Wilson where he bobbled it 17 times.
But see, that interception probably shouldn't have happened, but 3 lost fumbles on significant gains.
Yeah. And Zach got sacked 5 times. He got pressured probably 69 times. The offense, their offensive line just doesn't have it. Patty Neufeld got hurt, so that's losing one of your anchors that are left on that O-line. But Toronto's defense, they were ball hawking. They were hitting. They were physical. Them, it's not their fault that they didn't get called pass interference. Let's talk about. I forget his name, but the kid who got cut and then got re-signed and then gets a pick six. Tavares McFadden.
He did benefit from the non-call.
Yep. Yeah, I know.
He turned it into a touchdown, and that's how they won this game. And
that's
Kadeem
not
Carey,
how they won the game. That's not how they won the game. Let's talk about that.
Well, how did they win the game then, Sheldon?
By Mike O'Shea not doing what he should do on the road.
Yes.
You take the points on the road.
At the very end of, the second last drive, I guess we should call it. Now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Winnipeg gets the ball, 2:01 left on their own 53. Brady Oliveira has a 26-yard rush. Brady Oliveira has a 4-yard run and then a 5-yard run. So here we go. 3rd and 1. Toronto's 22-yard line. 57 seconds to go. The game is tied at 13. So obviously the offenses aren't having much success on either side of the ball. Now, I know there's going to be folks that say Mike O'Shea did not show confidence in his defense by going for it on 3rd and 1 because, of course, if Winnipeg kicks the field goal, let's just say Toronto gets the ball on the 40 with 50 seconds to go, can easily tie this game up, right?
Not necessarily in the 40 because in the last 3 minutes it's a kick. It's a kickoff.
Yeah. So, and maybe my opinion on this has changed because the game was tied. I mean, if Winnipeg would have only taken a 1-point lead or something like that, maybe I can see, the other side of this, taking the points. But at that point, Winnipeg was 18 for 18. Perfect on going for it on 3rd and 1. Perfect on the season. So I could see the thinking, we can get 1 yard.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's a 51-49 call. Like, I'm not saying I'm not saying he's wrong and it was the stupidest call ever, but I'm saying
hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, hindsight is 2020. But if and I'm not a coach, but like if I'm playing Madden or something, and it's a tie game, and I'm in an away stadium, and like if that scenario is in my head, I'm taking the points just because. There's a lot of variables that can happen. You could fumble the snap. You could get stuffed. Like there's 2 or 3 bad things and there's 2 or 3 good things. Because you could miss the field goal too, but you're close enough that if you do miss the field goal, you're going to get that extra. You're going to get a single point. It's and Coach O'Shea said after the game that he made the mistake. He said he would take the points next time. But that's fine. But I don't think. Like I'm saying, I don't think he was wrong to gamble because of what you said. They're 18 of 18. Chris Streveler's one of the best, if not the best. I think probably only Tommy Stevens might be better than him right now. And so, it should be an automatic. In the CFL, you're lined a yard off. Yeah. You should be able to get that yard. So I get it. And if you do get that, then you're running the clock down to 0 and kicking a field goal to win. So I understand that logic. But I think if you were at home, I do that. I make that call if you're at home because you have the crowd on your hand. You have the home field event. You have all that stuff. It's just, I always say if you're on the road, and let's face it, they were 2-5. They need a win.
Yeah.
So don't just take the points. But again, like I said, it's 51-49. But that did ultimately cost them the game because they gave up a whole bunch of momentum there. They gave Toronto's fans something to cheer about. And then Toronto's defense came alive in the overtime. And we know what happened.
Yeah, Sergio misses his second field goal of the game. Toronto takes over and kicks the game-winning field goal, winning in overtime 16-14. Like, so I have a hard time blaming Zach, and I know the quarterback always gets the blame, but he didn't get stuffed on 3rd and short. He didn't fumble 3 times, and he did not miss 2 kicks. So
nope.
Oh man, and a moment I think
you can tell he's still trying his hardest. You can tell he's still in it. He's still. You can tell he's pissed off that what's happening, and usually. We've said it a lot of times. Usually a pissed off Zach is a really good quarterback. Yeah. It's just he's not getting the time that he's used to. And we saw him take a little bit of a hit that the injury spotter took him out of 2 or 3 plays later, which was weird. But it was more weird as it didn't look like it was a head hit.
Didn't it happen twice in this game? Was it Tavares later in the game?
No. It
was another game.
Yeah. No, there was another player that got taken out, but that was like a helmet-to-helmet smash. So I understood, but still, that waited an extra play. Like these injury spotters, they got to be quicker.
Because Zach laid on the field.
Yeah, and he looked loopy.
He did.
He did look loopy, but I didn't see any hit to the head. Like it was like he got hit in the upper chest, and then he kind of just fell flat, and then he just laid there for a second.
Now, I noticed this last game against Saskatchewan. The guy looks like he's in serious pain. Like every time he gets hit. So I don't know if it's his head or what's going on.
He's not used to getting hit. He doesn't have those calluses. Yeah.
That's part of it. But when we talk about the physical part of the game, Toronto brought the physicality again to Winnipeg, and it was evidenced when Kadeem Carey trucked Adam Bighill, one of the best linebackers in CFL history, and Carey runs him over. That is how physically dominant this Argo team can be, and they steal a victory. They'll take it. Cameron Dukes gets the start, but he only has 4 passes, and then Nick Arbuckle comes in, and, well...
That's the frustrating thing, man.
12 of 22, 87 yards. Like, the Bomber defense has their best game of the year. The only touchdown is scored by the Argo defense. So the Bomber defense doesn't give up a touchdown. The Bombers had 1 penalty, and still the mistakes couldn't be overcome. This is a bizarre game from start to finish.
Yeah. It was the turnovers. The turnovers killed them.
Yeah.
Because the biggest part about the turnovers was, I think all of them, maybe all but one, no, all of them happened inside the Argos side of the ball too, or side of the field. So is when they were driving, when they were close to field goal range. But yeah, it's sad. Because Cameron Dukes, the first couple games, he looked like he was really going to be that guy. And then teams figured him out. And then Arbuckle came in at the end of a couple games, and he put some stuff together. And it's like, okay, maybe Arbuckle can be that guy. And then this game, neither of them were that guy. And a lot of CFL fans were looking for somebody to be that guy at this point in the season. So,
and Winnipeg outgained Toronto. They almost had double the offense. 400 net yards for the Bombers, 205 for the Toronto Argonauts, and they get the win, 16-14. What a...
I was still entertained by the game.
Yeah, it was entertaining.
Like, a lot of times lower scoring games are not fun, but I like the amount of turnovers, the hits, the coaching decisions, the overtime. I was kind of worried though, because our buddy Chris, who got the Guinness World Record in this game, he said if it went to overtime and it didn't finish by a certain time, that there would be a risk to the record. But luckily, it wasn't close to that, and he got his record. And most importantly, I think the CFL Fans Fight Cancer is up to $26,000 already.
Which is amazing. And the Grey Cup and the in-person event hasn't even happened yet. Yeah. So I guess Chris became bucket guy and has visited all 9 CFL stadiums, and the record was set in Toronto for this game. What a way to set the record, and what a game to wrap it off. Now, let's go to the final game of Week 8, where the Edmonton Elks fall to the Hamilton Tiger Cats 44-28, and the score flatters the Elks. I can't believe, Sheldon, that we're at this point of Bo Levi Mitchell's CFL career, and we're still seeing firsts. His first 5 touchdown game ever, 17 of 25. 316 yards, 5 touchdowns, and an interception. And that interception, it started well for the Elks. They get the ball first, they kick a field goal. The next drive, they pick off Bo Levi Mitchell, and you're thinking, whoa, like, the Elks are going to bring it. that drive ends in a field goal. It's 6-0 Edmonton. And then the wheels fall off because Edmonton's next possession ends up being a blocked punt. So Hamilton answers back with the field goal. The punt gets blocked. And then, man.
Touchdown. Yeah.
Well, I should mention there was an illegal punt in there, and then the blocked punt. So Jake Julian, probably the strongest punter in the CFL right now. Like he's sending out amazing punts, but the block and the illegal one, the wheels fell off, man. They keep finding new ways. Like, how do you say it?
Well, they just haven't played the Riders with their backup quarterback yet. No, like it's crazy. They waited way too long to pull McLeod Bethel-Thompson. Just after those first two series, he actually looked okay, but then nothing was happening. And I don't know what it was like there. I don't know if the if the Tre Ford chants were happening early on in the game, but I just think that waiting until the beginning of the fourth was just too little too late. And then, Tre Ford comes in and looks amazing, but when you're playing against a soft prevent defense, any quarterback can look amazing. So it's kind of like a false sense of hope for Elks fans. But honestly, the crowd got loud on TV. You could hear that the fans there were excited that they had something to cheer about after, 2.5 quarters of garbage. But I just don't know, man. Like you were there, so you take it.
I don't think I've ever been a part of a crowd that was that, angry, like, and the stubbornness displayed by the Elks to keep Tre on the sideline is something that I will never understand. I acknowledge.
Well, you were also there. Sorry, you were also there for the streak.
Yeah.
And you're saying it was worse than the streak.
Oh, they were so mad. And actually, there was a point where I don't want to say this. I'll just say a cameraman came up into the stands to try to capture the anger, and they started chanting, "We want Tre, Ford, Ford, Ford." They start booing the offense, booing McLeod Bethel-Thompson, and I feel so bad for McLeod in this situation. Now, the Elks are the ones that brought him in to get some victories. That's what happened. But now the vitriol's being directed at him. And the 0-5 was not, it's not him. Like, he's not the one that was struggling. But that first half of football was just so frustrating. He's not as mobile as Tre. He does have trouble escaping pressure, but there was a lot of overthrows. And I just think about the amount of money they're paying Geno Lewis. And I understand that Jamal Peters was on him. And maybe that is a big factor, trying to avoid one of the best cornerbacks in the CFL. But to not even give your $300,000 receiver a chance to win a one-on-one battle like that doesn't make sense to me. Boris Beatty, it looks like he's never practiced a onside kick in his life.
That was the worst one I've ever seen. I didn't want to say it, but that was the worst on.
But you just think about the amount of money that's tied up in Boris Beatty, where I've heard it's $200K, $300K to Geno, $500 to McLeod. $1 million in those three players, Sheldon.
Yeah, that's nuts.
$1 million.
That's 20% of the cap. It's almost 20% of the cap.
And then you won't even let Geno make those plays?
And if Geno's going to be getting covered, why isn't Curly Gittens Jr.? Why isn't Hergy Mayala? Why aren't they getting 200 yards a game between the two of them? And Boris Beatty, that's probably the worst 3 games in a row for like, and not just overall games, but just critical mistakes or just terrible performance. Like, and kicking is mental, so he's got to figure that out. It's something mental that's holding him, and it's the losing streak. I'm sure it's when he got that penalty when it went out of bounds, and then gave Hamilton the chance to win the game. But it's mental. He's got to figure it out because it's hurting the team.
And I do think that there were a few critical drops by Edmonton receivers as well. So that doesn't help, and that's not on the quarterback. But and then at the end of the first half, again, where the Elks just collapse. Like, what was the defense doing on that massive play to Luther Hakanavanu? 66
just ran right through them.
Untouched, 66 yards. Like, of course, if you cannot pressure Bo Levi Mitchell, he's going to surgically just pick you apart. And the lack of tackling,
It's great for my fantasy, though. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, we'll get to your fantasy. You did very well this week. But James Butler, they gave him the ball 21 times, 98 yards, and it looked like he very rarely went down on first contact.
Yeah.
Tim White gets 2 touchdowns. Giovanni Robinson, a touchdown. Luther, the touchdown. Keandre Smith, a touchdown. You get a touchdown. You get a touchdown. Oprah Winfrey was in attendance at Commonwealth Stadium. And so credit to the Ticats for, taking advantage and making it happen. But those Elks, man, it's the stubbornness. And I'm beginning to wonder, maybe Jones is not the number one problem. I understand he built the team. I 100% get that. But when he was on the sideline, they competed. What was this against the 1-5 team? I don't get it. And then the reluctance to put Tre Ford in there when nothing is happening. That's something I'll never understand. Now Tre goes in, and like you said, he's playing the soft defense with a massive lead at that point. I think he started warming up when the Elks were down 26. And then on that drive, while he was warming up, the Ticats scored another touchdown. So, let's put Tre in down, 5 scores or whatever. But, in 10 minutes of play, Tre Ford now has more passing touchdowns than Zach Collaros. So there's that. He goes 10 of 15, 121 yards, 3 scores, and then the magic is evading the defenders. Sometimes he makes those guys look like they are having their first time in football equipment. They get a hold of him and he escapes. It's just amazing to watch, man.
Yeah, it's like that one little ringer who's always on the little Timbits or whatever Pee-wee football that just runs around every other little kid.
Yeah.
It was crazy. And it's the exact same thing he did last year when he was given the chance at the beginning. It's
deja vu.
Yeah, it's literally deja vu.
Like, Tre saved jobs last year. Is that going to be the same this year? They have to start him, right?
They can only play the Riders one more time, though. So, sorry. I have severe PTSD.
I will say that he does look like a different quarterback. And we haven't been able to see the running doesn't seem like the very first instinct anymore. If that makes, and there's only been a little bit of time, including the preseason, that he's played, but that's just what I see.
His mechanics for throwing the ball look different this year too. Like the way he throws the ball, to get extra air under it, it kind of looked like on the 2 longer touchdowns. It was very interesting to me. But no, he just looks like the team looked completely different. Now, do you think that the team, I know you get a boost sometimes from the backup going in there, but do you think the team is has been fed up for a while and wanted Tre in there for a while, and now that he actually gets in there, they're going to turn it up a little bit? Do you think?
I actually don't know.
Like, is that possible that McLeod has lost the room as the leader?
Sometimes what I've gathered with some of the running quarterbacks, it can be a bit frustrating for an O-lineman or a receiver. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, the first play he comes in, I think he handed it off to Javon Leake, and it was like a 15-yard run. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know. Does he make everybody else around? But he came in obviously very loose and no pressure. You're down 5 touchdowns. Just go out there and have some fun. Again, when you're preparing as the number one guy, things are a little bit different. But it maybe just be the energy that he brings himself to the table. Just makes it happen by that offense. But it looked like they were ready to quit. And then
that's what I'm saying.
The offense makes plays, and then all of a sudden the defense is making plays at the same time. It's unexplainable, man. And maybe it's the fans, getting into it and finally having something to cheer for. But that's all they want, something to cheer for. Even in a loss, you leave encouraged for what might be to come.
Believe me, we know of some years where we were cheering for touchdowns like they were winning games. But what I was kind of going for was like maybe when McLeod Bethel Thompson has been giving these interviews and being critical of the league and all of that, maybe he was trying to be that leader for the team and make it seem like he cared a lot, but then maybe in doing so it made him look weak and kind of like he was whining, and maybe some of the players were kind of off put by that maybe. And I know there was the one comment when he was asked about Tre going in and him saying he wasn't a fan of that, and so I'm just wondering if that kind of worked opposite as to where he was trying to have it work, maybe, because it did seem like he was kind of putting like taking the shield and being like, hey, I'm the guy and I'm going to speak for my team. But maybe some of those players are like, hey man, suck it up and play football, and we're not winning games and you're the guy who's our supposed leader. So I'm not saying that's the case, and like we have said here, they're not 0-5 because of McLeod Bethel Thompson's play, but you need to win. And I know there's still people are talking about the name change. I saw something, Dustin Nielsen had a tweet today about that, but I actually am starting to think if this is not just a curse, not from the name change, but from when they fired Ed Hervey and Len Rhodes said winning isn't everything. I think this is
almost a trade from when a curse from when they traded Ricky Ray, and somehow they won the Grey Cup in there, but
they won 5 Grey Cups in a row, right? So now they're paying for that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that this franchise has been through. But like,
I remember when McLeod was still in the game, and they showed next home game Sunday, August 11th against BC, and we're all like, "Oh, great! This is fantastic!" So, like, now you have to start Tre against Saskatchewan, and you have to start Tre at home against BC, even if they don't win. And he's making plays, and he's at least entertaining. It's 0-7. I know they said they didn't give up on the season now, but hey, if they go 11-7, I'll eat my words. But
I think right now, if you're McLeod Bethel Thompson, you need to understand that it's not going to happen for you anymore this year, and take your $500,000 and be the best backup and be the best mentor for Tre that you can, because they need to make changes, because it is about next year now. It is about auditioning to see who's going to be there next year. But at the same time, the head coach and the GM are in the middle of an audition to see if they're going to be there next year. So they have to start making changes, and they have to see what's happening, and maybe it's time for G-Roy to try making some trades for some futures. I know the CFL is not a very big trade league, but maybe there's another team that could use Gino Lewis right now, and you could get something really good for next year for him. Maybe there's another team who could use some of the other players that, maybe aren't performing in that spot to where they should be, or where they should be making money. And I don't know, man. I just, you got to figure it out, because the Elks fans have been through so much, and the ones that are still there need something to keep them there.
Well, and right now that trading away Jake Serezna and losing AC Leonard on the D-line is not looking good. They can't pressure a quarterback, and that's very, very critical.
Where was Sean Oakman? Where was Derek Moncrief? Those were the two. Like, those are supposed to be the guys who
whiffed on a tackle. Moncrief's. Yeah. I mean, Oakman is. Yeah. Don't put on the green and gold. It might. I don't know. It's not looking good, and hopefully Tre.
But it's okay. It's okay, because they're gonna beat the Riders. Don't worry.
All of a sudden, the game is really interesting, isn't it? But hey, the Ticats took care of business. They got a big win. Bo is balling, and now the Ticats are really going to prove to us what they're made of, because it's a back-to-back with the Montreal Alouettes. I cannot wait to watch those two teams, a home and home between the Tabbies and the Als. Let's see what these Ticats are made of. Now, we've gone far too long, so let's just keep going. Let's talk about your power rankings, Sheldon, to get to the end of the show following Week 8 of CFL football.
So there's a few changes. So Montreal went back up to number 1. They beat the Riders, so can't keep the Riders up there. So Saskatchewan goes down to number 2. BC stayed at 3 because they were on the bye. Ottawa went up to number 4. You can't, like I said, I'm giving them some respect now with this hat. They're rolling, so they get that. Hamilton goes up. Toronto goes up a little bit too. Winnipeg goes down, Calgary goes down, and Edmonton. So Montreal, Saskatchewan, BC, Ottawa, Hamilton, Toronto, Winnipeg, Calgary, Tre Ford, and then Edmonton.
Now let's talk about your week of CFL fantasy. You end up winning Week 8 in the CFL Fans Fight Cancer League. You had north of 150 points, I believe. So let's hear your roster, man.
I had 158.5. I think that's my highest I've ever done.
Nice, man.
So I had the Riders defense, so that got me 8 points. I had Kadeem Carey for 15.7, Brady Oliveira 20.7, Tyson Philpott 15.8, Pimpleton got me 21 points, Hardy got me 16.3 points, and my big one with my captain, Bo Levi Mitchell, 61 points.
Okay, so
so that means he got 30.5 points.
Khalil Pimpleton was my highest scoring player at 21. My next highest scoring position was the Toronto Argonauts defense with 20. My quarterback, McLeod Bethel Thompson, 2.6 points. All you can do is laugh, man. Oh, that was the captain. So he got 1.3 before doubling his point total.
That was me when I had Fajardo when he injured his hamstring in the second quarter.
I still had like 87 points. That's with DeMonte Coxey getting 0, and he was on the field, by the way.
Wow.
But yeah. It's been one of those seasons for me, man.
Hey, I'm like a broken clock. I got right a couple times here. So don't worry. It'll be a while before I have another week like this again.
You can rate, review, and subscribe to Two and Out in your favorite podcatcher, and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. I think we're less than 15 away from 500 subscribers on YouTube. That is so nice to see. You can support the show on Patreon. You can find the links there on twoandout.ca and in the descriptions of the podcast on YouTube and on your podcatcher. That does help us with hosting costs. So those patrons are so valued to us. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you on Wednesday to get you ready for Week 9 and the August long weekend in Canada. take care of yourself and each other.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.